Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to dive into the new album by Earl Sweatshirt and the Alchemist, Voir. It's an album of emotional truth. It's sort of a poetic autobiography. And it's great because I've liked the other Earl Sweatshirt projects that I've reviewed, but this is, maybe it's that I'm just starting to get him. One thing about his style, his sort of sleepy relentlessness, is that it's easy to underestimate. It's easy to sort of dismiss. His art grows on you, or at least it grows on me. But this album is very refreshing and interesting to me because it's not. He references weed here and there. He references being a good rapper, all that. But really, the things that pop up the most often are his emotional state, and his mother and his father. And that's why I'm going to title this video something along the lines of The Trouble with Royalty or The Royalty of Earl Sweatshirt, because I think we need to understand him he is asking us to think of his parents throughout this album. Normally I don't like talking about biography, but he is asking us to think about them. And just in my last video where I talked about Drake, I discussed the fact that Drake really is a product of a great musically excellent family, right? His uncle invented slap bass, right? That's just insane. But Earl Sweatshirt, he is intellectual and activist royalty. And so I want to discuss that a little bit here because I think it is germane to both his work in general and this album in specific, okay? So maybe you know some of this, maybe you don't. I'm going to go into it more in just detail, more than just saying, this was this guy, this is this lady, and talk a little bit about Keo Rapetse Ko Sit stile. Kog sit sile. I don't know how to pronounce that. My forgiveness is asked. And normally I would hold up a book, right? If anyone has written a book, I try to have the book and show it with you. To my shame, I don't have any of Keo Rapetse's work. I have ordered it off Amazon. Be on my Instagram. By Thursday, you will see a picture of me holding up his complete works, and I'll be able to discuss it more at length next time I review an Earl Sweatshirt album. But it's just racism, right? It's racism that we don't think of this, that we don't know this poet better than we do. He was a member of the African National Congress. He helped fight apartheid. He was in exile for many years. He was the poet laureate of South Africa. And it's fascinating that his son is this large figure in underground hip-hop. And I'm not going to be able to read you an entire poem of his, because that's not the point. But I just want to give you a taste. You can go to, just look his name up, okay? That's Keo, K-E-O, rap, like rapping, Petse, P-E-T-S-E. Type in that word and poem, and you'll find a whole list of his poems on poems.com or something, okay? So this will help you understand sort of where Earl Sweatshirt is coming from. An omelet cannot be unscrambled, not even the one prepared in the crucible of 19th century sordid European design. You like that, right? Later on in the same poem, he says, in my language there is no word for citizen, which is an ingredient of that 19th century omelet. That word came to us as a part of a package that contained the Bible and the rifle. This isn't poetry time with Professor Skye, but that's a pretty interesting concept. And it's true, the word citizen was really popularized throughout the French Revolution. It was sort of turned into a weapon, a civilizing weapon that was really used to dominate and exploit people. So that's just the kind of mental space from which he comes. There's also a poem you can find. It's called Random Notes to My Son. So Earl Sweatshirt's father wrote him a poem. Beware, my son, words that carry the loudnesses of blind desire also carry the slime of illusion, dripping like pus from the slave's battered back, e.g. they speak of black power whose eyes will not threaten the quick whitening of their own intent. What days will you inherit? What shadows inhabit your silences? So, I've written little poems and done little artwork for my kids. None of it is that good or that kind of dark. What shadows will inhabit your silences? So that's one way to understand. His middle name, his real middle name, is Neruda, after Pablo Neruda, the great poet. Right? So poetry is really literally of his DNA, but even part of his name. True story, my car, the car with all the famous bumper stickers, I named it Neruda because I bought it from a colleague of mine who's from Chile. And just to go even further, talking about Earl Sweatshirt's father, he indirectly had a major impact on the founding of hip-hop. He had a poem called The Last Poets. And then The Last Poets, featuring Gil Scott-Heron, became this sort of spoken word with music collective, which is often cited as one of the predecessors of rap music and of hip-hop. So in a way, it's kind of all full circle to have Earl Sweatshirt be a rapper who's rapping, partly influenced by Last Poets who are inspired by his own father. Okay, so that's a way of thinking of royalty. And, we think about, Nepo babies and all these ridiculous terms that we have because we're worried about whether or not Phil Collins' daughter can act, okay? Or Randy Quaid's son is in that TV show about superheroes, whatever it is, right? Like we're very much in this place of thinking about should famous and influential people, should their children have success and have a voice? Of course they should if they have something to say. And so that's where I think we should start to maybe think about Earl Sweatshirt as almost like royalty. I mean, not like a king, right? Because it's not like his father has a lot of power or a lot of influence in everyday life. So he's not quite a king, not quite a prince. I'd sort of put him like above a viscount and below a marquise, Like that's where I'd put him. Oh, there you go. Do you know what you call someone who is above a viscount but below a marquise? You call him an earl. Earl, the name, actually means a man of noble birth and rank. And I do not believe this is a coincidence. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is, But come on. He is of noble birth and of noble rank. And that's just the one side. That's just the one side. So this album, which seems to be so dedicated to processing his sort of pain, his feelings of insufficiency, his desire to tell the truth about himself, comes from the title itself, Voir, okay, which is a legal term. 1066. I'm going back there. 1066. The Normans invaded England. They gave control of most administrative functions to the French court, which is why 25% of English is in French, particularly words pertaining to the law, pertaining to high cuisine, pertaining to anything that had to do with the mechanisms of power. Okay? That's where the word verdict comes from voir, which is an old French term for truth, and dict, which is to say. Voir dire means literally to say the truth, but it also means verdict. So verdict is a legal term which implies a sort of judgment, but also in its original meaning it means to tell the truth. All right? These are all legal terms that come to us from thousands of years of legal development. And of course, his mother is a great scholar of law. All right? Now listen, I mentioned this on my previous Earl Sweatshirt video. I'm a professor, right? But I'm not a professor like she's a professor, okay? I'm a professor a little bit like Donda, actually, like Donda West was. At a small public college where I can have a pretty good work-life balance. I do a lot of work. I reach a lot of kids. I reach a lot of kids who are maybe first, second generation college students. A lot of kids who have to work in addition to going to college, but the expectations of me of being a scholar are pretty low. But if I was at UCLA, where Earl Sweatshirt's mother is, I wouldn't have this channel. Are you kidding me? The work-life balance of somebody who works at that level. When I say professor at UCLA, you should not hear anything different than Harvard. Nothing different than Harvard. There's virtually no difference other than interpretation in terms of the level of work and the level of expertise and how you have reached the very, very, very tippy top of academia, okay? So it is not just like, oh yeah, she was a professor. We are talking about a very, very serious, very powerful intellectual, okay? Jesus. Could you imagine being a kid of the poet laureate of South Africa and somebody who is partly responsible for the entire field of critical race theory? Critical race theory, which I will remind you, is not telling 12-year-olds that slavery existed, okay? Critical race theory is a very serious legal theory that is very deep and very hard to understand. That's who she is. So this whole album, just right off the bat, it's poetic references to his father, poetic references to his mother, the legal title, the poetry throughout. It has this whole feeling, that the weight of the crown. Or what does an earl wear? Does an earl wear like a little tiny crown, like a little jughead crown? I don't know what an earl wears. And then just to sort of throw on top of that, we have Alchemist. And again, I don't want to get too much into the biography, but Alchemist is a fascinating figure to me because he's like a month younger than me, like a month and a week younger than me, something like that. And he's from, get this, Beverly Hills, right? So he's from Beverly Hills. His first rap band was with the son of James Caan, Sonny Corleone. Okay, so like a true Nepo baby, right? Like he was in a band with a true Nepo baby, and I'm sure he's great. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with Nepo babies, because if you're familiar with the world, it makes sense that you'd be able to succeed in it, right? So it's just kind of funny because we think of Alchemist as this, at least I think of him as an East Coast guy because of his beats, but he's not. He is a Beverly Hills kid who loved rap music and is able to make it. It's a sort of evidence of the meritocracy of rap music, which makes it perhaps better than most other rap groups. Most other genres. But we sort of have this great West Coast album, very disparate experiences, but two people who have experienced, and again, I don't know their material upbringing, okay? I can assume that there's a fair level of material comfort, not necessarily luxury, but not feeling hand to mouth, not feeling check to check, which is how a lot of rappers started off, a lot of rap artists started off. And so what that gives you is the freedom when you're not trying to figure out how to scrape by and how to exist. You have the privilege of going deeper and figuring out how do you think about what you're thinking. And that's what this album is. It is great. It's so good. People have been asking me to review it, but they like released it on some weird website. It was like harddisk.net/CZ, and like I don't know how to do that. I'm a 46-year-old Alchemist. We're the same age. Put it on Tidal. I don't know how to do this weird Zoomer garbage. Anyways, but yeah. So when we get to the actual album, it's a real grower in the sense that I happen to be randomly watching some video about design and about how car designs now are much more flashy and much uglier. And the idea is that they have to grab your attention, and that the sort of subtlety, like a truly beautifully designed, I don't know, like sedan, right? Like a 6 Series Mercedes from like 2002. You just look at it and it's just a Mercedes. It's just a car. But like when you actually sit with it, you see how fine the lines are, how well designed it is. There's a kind of quiet grace to it. It's not a Lamborghini. It's not a Ferrari. It has a sort of beautiful, quiet dignity to it. And that's how this album works, with this sleepy attack. And again, it feels to me like a lot of this what is the truth that is being told is that the way that I read it, and please, by the way, know that I'm not like some Earl Sweatshirt expert. I don't pretend to be. So please tell me, like, if you interpret this differently, tell me in the comments. I read all the comments. Matter of fact, if you leave a heart, if you say AVAA, I will heart your comment. That stands for awesome videos always. Smash the like bucket. I'm doing the whole thing now. I'm going to do an ad. Don't gamble. Ever. Just don't do it. I don't care how many sports books are being advertised to you. Nothing's free. They will get you every time. Don't gamble. And you probably don't need a VPN. Okay, I'm done with my advertisements here. But what I get a sense of in this album is that it really is about these feelings of inadequacy. Not from society, not the general feelings that most non-white people feel of feeling marginalized and disparaged for their existence and things they can't change about themselves. But more, it feels to me like he's really trying to come to terms with his adulthood, with his position in rap, with his position in life, while constantly thinking about and comparing himself to, sometimes subtly, sometimes it seems to me even unspokenly, to his amazingly accomplished parents. So, there you go. And I guess there's maybe some stuff about addiction in there as well. I don't know. I read on Rap Genius or something that he's been having troubles with addiction and he's very, very public about it. That sort of makes sense. That's part of the reason why often addiction hits people who have those feelings of inadequacy, because it's a temporary feeling. But let me give you an example of the album, Okay, the middle of the album, 27 Braids. Click above Makeba, who I will be discussing very soon. Put that over there. So, I mean, already we have this great cinematic 70s fuzzy Alchemist production. You know, he does this thing where some of the beats just feel so fuzzy and like whatever, but then there'll be like a certain like punch to it. So in this case, it's these drums that are really hard and it's just piercing guitar line. And he finds ways, I don't know if they're samples, I think they are, of just always having the drums just a little bit behind the beat. So not off beat, but just a little bit behind. If you're familiar with like rock and roll, like the way John Bonham plays drums versus the way, I don't know, we'll just say that as a good example, like being behind the beat a little bit, okay? And the reason I love the song is this that's how many verses, that's how many choruses, okay? This is as close as you're going to get to a rap poem. Now, I've talked a lot about how, in general, I don't like saying rap is just modern poetry, because I think rap doesn't have to be poetry to be valid, okay? So I don't like it when people say that, because it feels to me like they are trying to say, okay, that cruising down the street in my 6'4", jocking the bitches and slapping the hoes is not good enough on its own. That has to be more than just what I just said. It doesn't. It's one of the, problematic, but one of the greatest lyrics of the 20th century, and it doesn't matter that we can't say, it's just like Langston Hughes, okay? So, but that doesn't mean it can't be poetry, and I talk about this a lot when I talk about other very poetic rappers, in particular, Rap Ferreira. When it is poetry, it's great. Clean break, tougher to make. Ain't a thing to the king, they ain't ruffle the mane. Hold your head, cover your face, so disease don't spread. She said, I got a son on the way, made my bed, so that's where I lay. My worried bones, my heavy head, I carry home every day. My mama saying that I'll never be alone, even though she gotta know that I know she dismayed with the choices I made. Hey, I don't have dreadlocks. I got a haircut. I was going to get extensions, but I decided against it. I'm not black. I don't have a high-powered lawyer as a mom or a great poet as a father. I'm not a rap star. I'm none of these things. But how relatable are these lyrics? Like he's talking about this prospect of having a child and feeling worried, and his mother saying that he'll never be alone. These feel like real conversations. Like it feels like he got off the phone. All right, Mom, sounds good. Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. I feel a little bit better. Okay, yeah, you have to go teach a class. No, I get it. All right, cool. Keep fighting the good fight. Keep doing that amazing article about Hurricane Katrina that Professor Skye tried to read, but had a little bit of trouble because he doesn't really know how to read law articles, but he could tell it was really good. Okay, all right, bye. Okay, what did she say? She said, I'll never be alone. She said, I'll never be alone. Huh. But, I know she's mad. Like, I know she's hiding it, but I know it. All right? Just, who else is writing rap lyrics like this? My mom is saying that I'll never be alone, even though she gotta know that she dismayed with the choices I made. I know that she knows that I know. The only way forward is unafraid and focused when I'm holding these reins. Yell thanks over my shoulder to my auntie Elaine. 27 braids falling over my face, so that's the hair, right? His 27 braids of hair. And they're not dreadlocks, obviously. They're just braids. Those are different. Please roast me in the comments for making that mistake earlier. I just corrected myself, but put me on blast. Say, Professor Skye, you are on blast. That is a weirdly racist confusion you had between braids and dreadlocks. They're not even close to the same thing, you monster. Okay? Feel free to put that in the comments, all right? I deserve it. My head on straight, my mama closing the gate, and both of them sleep better when they know that I ate. I'm going through changes that I couldn't, and then kind of ends off there. All right? So this whole verse, it's the whole thing. The feelings of uncertainty, the relatable disappointment of his mother while his mother is trying to be there for him. He is just telling us the truth. Then he introduced, in between most songs, there's these little little sections of like quotes from other movies and plays. In this case, it's Vincent Price, who of course is most famous for his appearance on the song "The Dragon" by Biz Markie. Speaking of royalty, the Marquis of Biz. So yeah, I mean, it's him saying, "My ancestors tried to fight. It's time back to ancestry." It's actually a quote from the movie "The Mask of the Red Death," which was an interpretation of Edgar Allan Poe story, which is a very good. You should have all read that during COVID. It was a great COVID thing because it's all about this, like the way that sort of the mental impact that a pandemic has on people, especially living in opulence like we all do. So yeah, happens to be the character's name is Prospero. Just put a pin in that, okay? But this is a perfect example of his style. I'm going to go through the rest of the album much quicker. I don't always have a lot to say about each of the songs, but that's what's great, is the whole thing feels just like the Alchemist is so good at suiting the people who he's rapping with. It is able to be a very deep album of poetic meaning and also a complete and total vibe where you're just kind of hanging out and listening to it. 100 High Street starts off with these high strings, a great sample, weird soul singing in the back, the flounder, the drums eventually come in way behind the beat. Starts off focused, steady, and unbroken. And this is what he's about, right? He's all about like being focused and unbroken and just delivering this truth to us. Why did I cut and pasted the opening lines like 4 times in a row. Then at the end, there's this quote from Mohondoro, which is a term, I don't know from which language, that is native to the country, which was decided to be called South Africa by a bunch of people who shouldn't be there, or should have never gone there. You can at least say that much. Or should not have gone there with the position, pose, and intentions that they went there with. Means both lion and leader. So there's a lot of sort of tying together with Africa. You know, I talk a lot about Billy Woods' work, and it is fascinating that we have 2 rap artists from different coasts who are both very poetic and children of very important African leaders who mostly grew up with their mothers and grew up estranged from their powerful and important African fathers. I mean, it just that isn't, you know. I mean, if Mick Jagger and Paul McCartney both had mothers who were dental hygienists, right? We'd be like, well, that's weird. That's a weird coincidence. So, anyways, next track is called Vin Scully. Just I was trying. So my wife is from Yugoslavia. That's where she was born, and so there's a lot of stuff she doesn't understand about America. So I had so much fun explaining who Vin Scully was. Because I love baseball. I love baseball announcers more than I love baseball. So Jerry Remy is like my favorite baseball player. He wasn't even that good when he played. But Vin Scully is amazing. A broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers. One of my Patreons, Steve, is my co-host on my podcast about Star Wars. He's a big Dodgers fan. And, you know, you just don't expect to hear Vin Scully. Just this great, great, great voice. My wife was like, oh, is that why the X-Files character is called that? Yeah. Just this great guitar, like, kind of starts and resets. And what's great here is Alchemist is playing with us, because this whole theme is about I remember. It's funny because my favorite song off of the Drake album was all about remembering as well. I'm not going to try to say, like, this. I'm not going to do some kind of thumbnail thing. Like, is Earl Sweatshirt the same thing as Drake? No, but obviously it's fascinating that they both have these interesting remembrance songs that are, you know, that song on the Drake album happened to be my favorite one. I don't remember the name of the song because Drake song titles are not super awesome. But one thing, if I were to have a problem with this album, it would be one of its, I say this a lot, a drawback to this album is probably actually part of what makes it good. So this is not much of a song. Chorus, verse, chorus, outro, right? So much like the Stamp 27 Braids was like just one verse. They are not hung up on structure. They're not hung up on giving you predictable structure. And I think that ties into the poetic nature of it. And again, when we're thinking about his father's poetry, and I swear to God, if I don't pronounce his name correctly on the next Earl Sweatshirt video, then you can get mad at me. For now, I'm just going to refer to him as his father. I will get there, okay? And it's not an African thing. If his father had a Norwegian name, I wouldn't pronounce that correctly either, okay? So the poetry, his style of poetry is not whatever Alexandrian verse. It's not a sonnet. It's not it's not very formally rigid. And I think that actually is the same kind of rap style here. I'm not trying to say that he is directly inspired by his father. I'm trying to say his father was a part of a poetic movement, which was often a black poetic movement, but not exclusively a black poetic movement. Kind of less structurally predictable poems. That's the way that he writes verses and the way he composes songs. So you're not going to get chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, outro, right? It's just kind of all over the place. This is all about remembering stuff, but it's not happy. I remember the ghost inside the crib, hosing down the problem with gin and tonic, how to stay afloat in a bottomless pit. The trick is to stop falling. Son of father and death, big mama with the vision of sorrow, now I know why they wept. So I assume, as far as I can tell, his father died a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago. My mom died 2016. I still talk about it on the channel all the time. My dad died in February. I'll be talking about it for the next couple years. It happens to be a big event in everyone's life. But it's interesting because I get the sense that that's the ghost and that he's trying to fight it with alcohol, and this is about his just trying to struggle. And then he makes a reference to Dewey Cox. John C. Reilly's character from Walk Hard. So a little bit of variance there. The song kind of unwinds as it goes. We then get to Sentry featuring Mike. There's this voice in the background all over the place. And here he really goes into his heritage, right? He goes into his history. I started at the bottom of the hill. Actually, I started in the mid. So again, that's what I was talking about. He didn't start from the absolute bottom, nor did he start from the lap of luxury. He started in the mid, right? The middle class. Actually, I started in Illinois. Khoikhoi and Swana in The Kid, bloodstains of the fatherland, bloodstains of my motherland, tough clay, all of it's red. Going into his origins in Chicago before moving to LA, his origins in Africa. I like Mike here too because he comes right in and continues on this theme of parentage. For Pops, I'm taking the charge, ain't no option, I'm making it ours. I know Ma used to pray that I ain't hardened, only son getting saved because they smart. Talking about the way that you have to sort of harden in order to be safe in certain circumstances, and it's great. It's the kind of guest rapping all the way throughout this album, the kind of guest rapping that you want, which is someone who comes in and says, hey, all right, what's the project? Okay, what are you talking about? Okay, what is this song? Okay, I will deliver you a verse that matches. I don't know why that's so hard, but very few rappers do it. And then there's a quote from Aimé César's Tempest. So his version of the Shakespeare story, okay? If you don't know Aimé César, Tragedy of King Christophe is a great play, but you have to study some Haitian history before you get to this. It's a wonderful play. But obviously his most important work is a notebook on a return to the home country. I'm just going to be translating on the fly here. It's written in French. Essentially the foundational text of Negritude, the belief that there is an international blackness, that culture should be understood through some sort of lens of international blackness and sort of shared suffering and shared exaltation, shared joy, shared visions, varying visions. I am not an expert on Negritude. I really suggest you read Césaire, okay? You can find PDFs of it online, or you can buy it. Have a good library, would you? Would you? If you like Earl Sweatshirt, if you like Billy Woods, if you like Rap Ferreira, if you like underground rappers who try to tell you a little bit about history, this is an essential part of your. You don't have to have it in French. Well, you should learn French. So again, he's tying himself together with a different poet, not African. He's from Martinique, but still a similar sort of historical, transnational blackness, resistance, taking Shakespeare and sort of changing it into a post-colonial form. I haven't actually read his Tempest, but I should order that as well. I'm telling you, you got to listen to these rappers. When Makami tells you to read something, you read it. When these rappers tell you to read something, you should read it. What else are you doing, right? What are you playing FIFA? So that's a little bit of your reading list there. Heat check. Hey, you want a beat? Yeah, sure, Alchemist. Why did you come out of left field? Where did this beat come from? Is this leftover a Larry June beat? Like, what is this beat? It's great. It actually breaks up the album. Like, this point of the album, the style's getting a little bit repetitive. So here's this breezy beat. And it's great because it's so sweet next to his relentless, sleepy approach. Couldn't cope with the dope fiend shit. Oh, that's a whole needle. I can't promise I won't leave you. Sort of tying into that theme, I guess, of addiction. A lot of fun kind of verses about, like, being tough, but also sort of images of desperation, talking about some woman who's hooking out west like Kareem did. I am from Boston, so I'm a Boston Celtics fan, but I've been watching Winning Time, and I watched the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar documentary. So it's hard to admit that there's any player in the history of basketball better than Marcus Smart, but it's possible that Kareem was. If you haven't watched that documentary, by the way, man, talk about an American hero. Man. Yeah, doesn't matter. Then the next track is Mancala, which is just, what the hell? Like, whoa. Like, where did this come from? Like, what a gorgeous beat. Well, I'll tell you where it came from. We all have a Kanye-shaped hole in our heart. We just know it. We know it, okay? We miss the new Kanye. We miss the old Kanye. This kind of strong piano, gospel-y, we're going to make it upbeat beat with like room mics of the original sample and clapping a little bit off. I'm not calling Alchemist a biter. He's not. But this kind of beat fills that kind of feeling that we had with this early Kanye. It's just so good. A very inspirational verse from Earl. Try to recollect all the pain I had to author fresh, waiting out the waves, foot on a colonizer's neck like a collar crotade. I'm trying to follow the trail, cut off the coattails that hang, and I plot on how to prevail and drop gems like Mancala. Mancala's like that game, which I can't play. And then we get Vince Staples back. And I haven't heard him since he did that Hyundai commercial, whatever that was. And I really like Vince Staples. I think he's a great rapper. I think he's one of the better rappers out there now. Of course, another royalty, right? He's obviously the heir of the Staples fortune. Sorry, that was a joke. Feel free to give me a thumbs down on that joke. Actually, the Romneys are the people who control Staples. And I've met Mitt Romney on multiple occasions. I crashed my car in his front yard. I don't remember what video you have to watch to hear that whole story, but it's true. Mitt Romney called AAA for me. Nice guy. Weird guy. I'm glad he wasn't president. I did not vote for him. But the thing about Vince Staples here is I want it. Please give me a whole album. Please. Staples and Sweatshirts, right? Can we please have a whole album? Because his slightly nasally tone works so well against the sleepy attack of Earl Sweatshirt. These two voices go so well together. And there's like this unification. I don't know what it is. You know what? Yeah, I'll tell you. Hey, you know what? Hey, let me tell you. So my wife did all this behind me. This whole room looks different, and she did all the work, So this right here, this is our stripy couch. I bought that couch a while ago. I love it. It's a super long couch, And in the back, there's these new cupboards that have these stripes. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to paint it so that the colors matched the couch? And she said, well, that's a rookie mistake, Skye. You don't want to match. Toby's back there too. Toby, you want to come up? Yeah, you can hang on the couch. It's fine. You don't want to match. You want things to go well together. So Earl Sweatshirt and Vince Staples don't match. They just go so well together. They complement each other so well, like a blue pillow on a yellow couch. And Vince Staples just has this great line. I done stacked so many rounds, feel like the Michelin Man. Tried, stuck around, and stabbed me in the hands. Smacking shit, got my mama asking, reading shit. More stuff about parents. It feels like this is a very unified project where he's like, okay, I need you to talk about your parents. Also talking about faith. There's a whole other theme of faith. Perhaps if I wanted to, which I don't have the time to, I think we could probably also do an entire study of like the relationship between the church and the courts, because there's a lot of wordplay in this album around things that could be tied into the courts. And I don't think that's merely a question of his mother being a legal scholar. Correction, his mother being a top legal scholar in the world. Okay, I don't think it's just that. I think it's actually more about the world that we live in and the sense of feeling judged and powerlessness in the legal system, maybe putting that up against the powerlessness or the power that's felt in church. Anyways, that's my gift to you. If you're a academic in the future and you're trying to write a paper about Earl Sweatshirt, there's a topic for you, okay? Religion and the courts in Earl Sweatshirt's Voir. Then we get to the stamp 27 Braids. Great song. Then we get to Mac Deuce, like a xylophone sample, the great ride cymbals. I like this because this has just some good, just straight up rhymes. This is the difference. 4th and inches and we go long. Shimmy when I score the ball. Hail Mary, Bales everywhere I look. Name ringing the bells everywhere out in the walk. I'm not trying to talk. Hail in the maitre d' to the final chorus. Filling all the vacancies like the brightest star. Good God. Just the sports imagery, and he's sort of showing that he doesn't have to always be in this kind of internal monologue about himself. He can also just spit bars. Sirius Black, the next track, has kind of bells, and this is a real vibe song. It has a nice little verse about like the ease with which he slam dunks, sort of continues the sports metaphors of the previous song. Leads into Dead Zone, kind of a creamy, cool sample. These guitar, these little notes, like a chipmunk voice. Starts off with a cool rhyme play with just these terms like flirting with death, curving. Here, I'll do like this one, the rhyme that interests me, which is an urgent sound. Flirting with death, curving. I watch him work, purging. I wept. Stepped off. I deserted you. Left when I was wordless, murky, water immersion. I do out of certain, right? So like that kind of urgent, sturgeon, purging, furging. I'm a rapper. This has maybe the best verse. I don't know. The one thing I'll say about this album, when I listened to it the third time, I kept on saying the best verse was on each of the song here. Jumping Jehoshaphat, leaping through the loop of death. Don't lose your head either. Don't snooze or rest. We up like fingers way above the rim. Again, connecting that previous song with the slam dunks with Shaq and the blackboards breaking. Full-length feature films, what we up against. We know the drill. Keep it real. They're going to fuck with it. You lost the appeal. Again, you lost appeal. That's a term like you lost appeal, but also that is a legal term saying you lost the appeal. Okay, and this is all throughout this album. These kinds of little wordplay. So you're welcome for helping you write that paper. I played the field. It was humbling. Soil, till, blood on the leaves. So. It's funny because this album's been out for a couple weeks, so I use Rap Genius to read the lyrics, and I like Rap Genius, but how has nobody picked up the wordplay on soil, till, blood on the leaves, right? So you till over soil, and he's talking about the field. This is a beautiful lyric. I played the field, it was humbling, soil, till, blood on the leaves, but also Emmett Till was murdered, right? So his murder is tied into the murder of many young black men in the American South, which is what the song Blood on the Leaves by Nina Simone was about, right? And he's just saying it, So somehow they didn't pick it up on Rap Genius, but it's okay. There is no they. It's all us. Next song is The Caliphate, back again with Vince Staples, the heir to the Staples empire. It's the stupidest joke. Is that the stupidest joke I've ever told? Tell me in the comments. Wavy strings, kind of a hiss on the record. Vince, again, is just great counterpoint. Again, he's talking about his relationship, about he's the son of Ramona. And I think Ramona Park is where he grew up, if I remember the name of his last album, so he's not actually saying a person in there. But what's cool is like they kind of weave back and forth, and this song ends up being like a 2-person posse cut where they keep coming back with more and more verses. I come across often as very smug and self-satisfied. So it may surprise you to know that I have a pretty bad opinion of myself. But sometimes I'm pleased. And when I heard this song for the first time, even though I've never heard a single interview with her, I'm like, that's Miriam Makeba. There's no way that's not Miriam Makeba. And I never heard her speak. I've only heard her singing on these 2 great albums that I bought. Okay? You see that? That's $18. Okay, I bought a used record for $18. Okay, that was on recommendation of my friend Sumia. So it's an interview with Miriam Makeba. If you do not know the music of Miriam Makeba, it's okay. Listen. This is my deal with you. There'll come a time in your life, probably when you're around 40, 42 years old, where you'll hear like Frank Sinatra and you'll be like, you know, I sort of get why people like it. It's a terrible moment. It's a sign that your cells are dying. I don't know what to tell you. It happened to me, okay? I didn't care about Frank Sinatra at any point in my entire life. And then in my early 40s, I'm like, he's all right. Okay, that's fine. But just also take that newfound appreciation of older music and of master singers and apply it to Miriam Makeba, who is like one of the greatest international superstars of the 20th century that you've never heard of. It's not your fault. It's not your fault, okay? You've barely even heard of Harry Belafonte, and he was American, okay? Miriam Makeba, delve into her story. She was married to Stokely Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael, who was my cousin's babysitter. That's another story I told in some other video. It's true. He was good friends with my aunt. Geez, did they ever meet her? I'll have to ask my cousin. Anyways, she is an amazingly important person. And what's great is this interview, it's just picked perfectly because she's being asked on some interview, whatever, what is the message you want to transmit with your music? And there's this beautiful warbled organ sound, this beautiful waltz. And she talks about never closing your eyes to what's around you, sort of a politically engaged meaning. And then it goes into the next song, Free the Ruler. And then she says, the message I'm trying to give my audience is not one. I'm just trying to make them understand me as a person. And we go to my favorite theme of all human creation, which is humanity. That is what we are looking for. Okay? We're not looking for teams. We're not looking for the best West Coast guy. We're not looking for the best black this, the best white that, the best this, that, the best member of this tribe to do this particular thing. We're looking for humanity. And that's what art can help us communicate, right? Whether it's through Aimé César's writing about his feelings of returning home to his native land, or whether it's Miriam Makeba's choice of songs and languages, or whether it's Earl Sweatshirt's entire album where he's telling you the truth about himself. If we can understand these people, as human beings, we are not going to murder them. We are not going to murder people who look like them. We are not going to murder in the name of some kind of identity ideology, and we're going to be able to see each other and know that we are all people with favorite colors who had a third grade teacher, right? Like, you have a favorite color, so do I, right? We're humans. And it's the most political thing in a way you can do, especially if you're from a group that's traditionally marginalized or subjugated or treated terribly, is to just insist on your humanity. That's what the truth is. And then Earl kicks into my favorite line in the whole album. Excavate me as I can. You probably didn't expect me to freak out over that line, so I'm going to say it again while I take a sip of my coffee. You can buy the mug. Don't gamble. Think about it. Excavate me as I can. You get it? As I can. He's trying to get to the truth of himself as I can. He's acknowledging his own weaknesses. He can't get as far as he'd like to get, but he's going to get as far as he can. He's going to tell you as much truth as he possibly can. He talks again about having died. I guess he died and came back. I don't know, either spiritually or honestly. I'm back cutting up a list of reasons why I love my mother's laugh. The best one is that it just is what it is. Put it on my tab. I get ugly hugging on that cold mug or flask. The folly of man, I found my father in my furtive glass. Oh my God. So, I'm trying not to cry because my mother's laugh means a lot to me. She laughed like this. She did. We go to movies and she'd watch movies and she'd always laugh. It's my favorite thing about my mom. Didn't matter if everyone else in the thing was quiet. If she thought it was funny, she'd laugh. Now, she was often very high, so that was not great. when I grew up and understood that a lot of the reason she was laughing was because she was high, and I felt betrayed, and like nothing I did was ever funny. It was all about the drugs. I worked through this stuff in therapy. I'm okay now. But still, one of the greatest things about her is her laugh, because she died 6 years ago, right? So just to essentially figure out what is it that you love about your mother's laugh, what a beautiful way to describe what he's trying to do. And then tying in the folly of man and my father, my furtive glance, and like trying to figure out where's the sort of responsibility, the abandonment, the heritage of, I guess, whatever weaknesses his father had, whatever greatnesses his father had. It's all here, and it's all together. It's a great album. Okay? So, not only have I reviewed the album for you, I am not giving you homework. You've just watched 45 minutes of this review. Earl Sweatshirt gave you homework. I didn't give you homework. Okay? It's the cigars that are going to kill you. Okay? So, Miriam Makeba, just doesn't matter. Pick any of her music. It's all great. Aimé Césaire, Notebook on a Return Home. Listen, it's easy. It's easy. It's a thin book. Okay? It's the foundation of negritude. All right. Till next time, there's the camera.